Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Writers Chat. And this is where we like to gather together as writers, talk about all things writing for writers and by writers. And we are so excited this morning. We have a bunch of extra guests, and Johnnie is going to share with us about the most recent writer's trip to all exotic places, but Italy. But we're going to talk about why travel can help our writing and enrich us. And so we're so glad to have everybody here today sharing these stories. And I look forward to hearing this today. So Johnnie, thank you for sharing this and inviting some people with us. And I'm going to hand it over to you to take it from here.
All right. Well, I'm just really excited to talk about this, and so excited that I'm actually a little scattered, and I kept just trying to bring my thoughts together, and they just keep going scattering all over the place. So, I mean, there was just so much to tell and so many fun things. I will say that, of course, you're in Italy. So a writing retreat in Italy is just wonderful in itself, but it truly was just a great trip because of the people that were involved. I think because of the size of the group. There were only about 14 actual attendees, but we had like 27, 28 people because people could bring their husbands or spouses. There were a couple kids there, so that was fun. Bethany and her whole family were there, so I got to spend some time with my grandkids in Italy, which was a great fun too. We were posting pictures, some of us, as the days went by. And I remember seeing a comment where someone said something like, the Serious Writer tour seems to be the Serious Writer food tour. So I thought I would just address that right off the bat, because yes, that is absolutely true. And I even have on today my little apron, Tuscany, and down here, I don't know whether you can see it, and this is kind of awkward on camera, that says the Serious Writer tour. So we each got one of these because we had a pasta making class. But the food was fantastic. And for the most part, I will admit there were some things I didn't care. For the most part, it was fantastic. And the amazing thing was that I know from anecdotal evidence that some people said they went home and they had lost weight, even though we were eating all this food. And I'm pretty sure I did too. I didn't actually weigh myself, but just from the way my clothes were fitting. So, of course, we were doing a lot of walking and that too, and not eating. For me, I know I don't eat a lot of processed foods, I don't think anyway, but I was eating even less. Like what we had was fresh, and it was, made there and served to us, and it was wonderful. One of the things that was really interesting, though, was that the meals last forever. So even one day when we're doing this tour and we're going to lunch, and then we're going to be doing this medieval city and all these things. I don't know how long the lunch lasts, but it had like 5 or 6 courses, and it was lunch. So a couple people, I won't mention any names, Hebe and Toni Lepeska, they kind of took off and just sort of wandered around the town, but then they missed out on one of the best desserts I had the whole time I was there. So there you go. So I want to I have stories I can tell. I'll tell one real quick because of the whole writing thing. I mean, people are saying, do you have a story now? Did you find a story to tell? So really quickly, yes, I did. But the funny and ironic thing of it is how I came about to get this story. So we went to a couple different vineyards, and one day we went to this older one. It was really cool. We got the tour, not vineyards, wineries. I'm sorry, a winery. And then, of course, they feed us because that's what we do everywhere we went. We were eating. and I'm sitting with Liz Hensel and her husband, Mike, and their daughter. And as we're eating lunch, and Liz asked me about how I got interested in World War II. And I tell her. And then her husband says, I've got an interesting World War II story. My fathers fought on opposite sides of the war. So his mother's father fought for the German side, and his father's father fought for the Allies, for the Americans. So I just so fascinated by that. And we talked about it, and it's like, I want to fictionalize this story. I really don't know how. I'm not sure of the structure of the story. I don't know when I can even do it. It'd be 2 years before I can. But he's already talked to his mom, and he already, she would like to talk to me. So it's kind of set up that I could, if I get the chance, I could write the story. But the ironic part is that Liz and Mike live next door to Bethany and Justin. And yet it took going to Italy for us to have this conversation and for me to find that story. So, you just never know what's going to come out of things. But I want to give everyone else a chance to tell what they did. So Sally, you're kind of next on my screen. You want to share for about 5-10 minutes something about what was great, what you learned, what you're going to use in your writing, how this trip was for you?
I don't know. It took me 2 days to get there. I was late, missed the first day of conference, which was Johnny's class, of course. So I don't know. I said I could offer a class on why bad things happen to good people. Traveling was a nightmare for me. But I don't know. Just so many little things, all those stories. I made a log of everything that I can glean from and stick into my stories, because what do they say? Reality is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good because well, Bethany and Kyle are just two of the most on top of marketing and the newest, latest, greatest, whatever. So it was nice to feed from their trough, so to speak. All the eating we did. All the eating we did. I don't even drink wine, and I drank more wine on that trip than I can't even tell you. There's wine for lunch, wine for dinner. But it's like I don't necessarily care for wine, but I felt like I had to try it. I felt like I had to do the Italian thing. I slowed my roll so I wouldn't embarrass myself. But the one that I noticed first was we stayed in a place called Chiusi, the town, which was about 2 hours northeast of Rome, 2 hours southeast of Florence. So it was sort of in between, like a triangle. But the dinner wine that they had just sitting on the table was like made there in Chiusi. And it's like, how can you not just try that? But yeah, wine everywhere we went, cheese everywhere we went, meat everywhere we went. And I tagged on a trip to my sister's place at the end in London, and she greeted me with a meat and cheese platter. I was like, thanks. More meat and cheese. Great.
Yeah, we did have a lot of meat and cheese. That was like an appetizer almost. Like we'd have the bruschetta, and meat and cheese was very common.
Yeah. So even that first tour day, we started with an olive mill where they showed us how they make EVOO. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then there was a big cheese platter along with bread and their EVOO that we piled on there to see how good it is. Yeah. And but yeah, every place we went, we ate, and there was wine. I was like, I think it might be like years before I have another sip of wine.
Jeannie said she's getting hungry. Okay, what about, was there a specific story idea you came home with, or an article idea, or anything along that line? Or is
I think somebody else stole it, the How to Travel Light. Because I did everything the wrong way. When I thought I was doing it the right way, I thought I was packing light, and I had a bag that was right at the limits of what the airline would take without charging me more. I had a hard side case that I was late coming in from Orlando to London, which is where I did my round trip, and then I did the hop from London to Rome and then back again so I could see my sister. So I thought that made sense and it saved money, but until British Airways was late taking off, and so I was late landing, so I missed my flight, and they made me buy a new ticket, and then they couldn't get me out to 8:30, which got me to Rome at 11:30, to the hotel at 12:15. So another cab fee, another hotel fee, and plus another airline ticket. I'm like, wow, I didn't really save any money at all. And fueling the airline who shuttled me to Rome from London broke my hard side large suitcase that I could barely lift myself in the first place. And now I'm having to lifted over every divot, every bump, just to make sure the wheels didn't actually finish cracking off, because they cracked all around the of two sides, and it's the side that you would roll back and then carry that way. So I couldn't even do that. It was like great. But yeah, I didn't pack right. I didn't do my tickets right. Next time I'm not going to save any money. I'll go right to Rome, right to London, and right home.
I think lots of us have those kinds of stories.
It's a travelogue. So in between, when I was sitting there for 12 hours at Gatwick in London, I did travelogue, and then on the Vueling I did travelogue, and I just sort of kept up with that as I went, and my trip back was a little easier, but it still had a lot of hiccups. And so yeah, my travelogue that I will glean from.
I think that you can still write a story about mistakes or errors or something like that. And I know Liz Hensel, I think, immediately had an article up about how to travel light, but there was so many of us had little or big. I mean, like you were late because of a big glitch. And then we know that other people on the other end, because there were train strikes. And so, we were late sometimes making connections, and a couple of the attendees were going to Greece afterwards, and they had to punt and do something else because their flight was canceled to go to Greece. So, it's learning how to adjust at the last moment was a big lesson, I think, for all of us. You guys know Julie Lavender. She's been a guest here. Julie, bless her heart, her luggage never left the United States until it arrived at their Rome hotel in the wee hours of the morning the day they were flying back to the United States. So she was without her suitcase the whole trip, except she did get to cart it back home again. So, there were a lot of these things going on. And yet I will tell you this, the whole spirit of the conference was just so wonderful. And like Sally's laughing about her experiences, and she is a hoot. And then, everyone just there was disappointments with some of these travel plans. And Hebe and I had some glitches that we may or may not talk about. It was, but you just go with it, but you do learn from it. I mean, we're sort of like Sally. I do not want to fly into London for a connection ever again in my lifetime. But so, if I'm going to stay there, fine. Otherwise, never mind. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. Toni, what would you like to share with us? There you go.
There we go. Hi, guys.
So good to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I knew from previous travel that I'd probably be inspired. It's just travel brings out new experiences, new people, and it just frees you from the routine of, your everyday life. And it just offers, I guess, it pours into you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't bring my computer. I thought to, but my laptop, but I just was trying to get rid of weight. So any writing I did was either longhand or just typing on my Samsung Notes app, which is fine. I did that before many a time. And I just and it wasn't, and I did some writing while I was there at the villa. But just traveling on the plane, having all that time to just sit there and, okay, now I have to entertain myself. So I guess I'll write, I'm a writer. So yeah, that works. So, I came away with, one is a visit to the St. Francis Monastery.
Yes.
Beautiful place. I didn't even expect that part. I did not even know we were going to go there. And it's just the things that just pop up. I mean, I thought it was ironic when we arrived that there was a no dog sign there. And if anybody knows anything about St. Francis, he was very pet friendly. So, and then as you guys remember, on our way back up out of the monastery, here comes the two dogs that we saw on the road earlier, trotting down, and I just thought that was really funny. I haven't completed what I'm going to write about that. And the platform made just a Facebook post, but a long Facebook post, but it's entertaining, it's an insight. let's see, I wrote a little bit about, I wrote a little something on my memoir that I'm working on. And I wrote about the Pisa Tower, how, and that was not part of the trip. That was a side trip that Liz Roberts and I took. But just thought about how, and I like to write inspirational things. I'm focused on loss and grief, but, and we all experience that in different ways. It can be death or loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of any type of role that you have. But I thought about when this tower is leaning, I was like, this guy who built this tower felt like such a freaking failure. And here all these people are going to see the thing. They've even propped it back up so it won't fall, you know, they take measures. That's inspiration to me. So when I have a failure, when any one of us has a failure, God can redeem that. It can be redeemed. And just so that trip, and just getting back to the fact that travel just opens us up. I mean, we don't have to go to Italy, though, you know, it's really nice, just like Sally was talking about. It's Italy. But it just opens you up and just provides so many learning opportunities too, relationship building, and just writing your own personal stuff.
All right, that's great. I also want you to tell us, so we're sitting at dinner, so it's this huge long table, so, you know, and people sitting on both sides. So fortunately, I was sitting down at the end where Toni was talking to Kyle. She's such a humble person. Tell us about the award that you won.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I won the grand prize, the personal essay contest for Writer's Digest. That
wow.
was, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. We learned about that in January. And Kyle was pretty much blown away. And it was an accident that I ended up being seated between the two organizers. They said, sit by somebody you haven't sat by. And I sat by Bethany. And then there was only one seat left, and Kyle was the only one standing. So he ended up sitting by me. So, and that was really a God thing. And that's another thing that these trips, they can offer so many opportunities. I had a lot of back pain coming into the trip, 3 weeks. And the Monday before I left, I went to the orthopedic doctor and said, hey, this trip might not happen. And he said, we're going to give it all it's got. And I got 3 steroid shots, a bottle of hydrocodone pills. You guys didn't know that, or you'd been in my room. And some more steroid pills in case there was a breakthrough. And so I didn't get to prepare for this trip professionally like I wanted to. I didn't have a verbal pitch. I pushed out a 1-sheet that I ended up giving to Kyle, and he graciously spent 20 minutes with me and said, if I didn't know you're the grand prize winner of the personal essay contest, I would not give this 1-sheet another look. Which was great, though. 4 years ago, I would have been like shriveled. I did not shrivel. It was invaluable or valuable. I don't know which word it is, but it's very valuable advice that I can use to rework that 1-sheet. And he said he'd be interested in talking to me about my memoir if, you know, I make these changes that and work on the market aspect that he and I discussed aside from the 1-sheet. So, I mean, I loved that I crossed Italy. I had to cross Italy to get that, but it was a wonderful opportunity.
That was great. And that was one of the fun things about being there. So the way it was structured is we had like one day of like the retreat. So Kyle, Bethany would do things in the mornings, and we'd have the classes, and because the groups were so small, there was a lot of interaction. I mean, I love the classes I taught because I was really able to talk to the people in there about their stories and, you know, draw some things out of that. So that was really, really fun. And I hope beneficial to everyone that was in there. And then we do a day of the tour, or do a day where we were out and did things and saw things. And then, so that's sort of how it went. And Toni, again, I mean, just congratulations to you, because winning a Writer's Digest contest is a huge, huge deal. And I hope that is in a prominent place on any one sheets that you prepare in the future. It needs to be on there. I mean, we were just like, what? So congrats for that. That is terrific. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to shoot down to Hannah Rose and let her talk for a few minutes about her experience.
Well, hi everyone. I wasn't expecting to talk, so I've been thinking, and Sally and Toni and Johnnie, when you're all sharing, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And Toni, I'm getting the picture of you with the dogs. I will maybe do it tonight and send it to you because it's on my computer. But I was the only one coming from another country besides America. I was the only European there. I live in Israel, but I'm from the UK. So I was Miss Know-It-All. I didn't mean to be, and I felt so bad. But like, everyone always had questions about the washing machine, the dryer. Why is there water in the dryer? What is an aubergine? Things like that. So it was very entertaining for me to be among a big group of Americans and hear all their questions and things. But the retreat for me was an incredible experience. Again, I'm in Israel, so I'm very isolated here from getting to talk to people within the book world face to face. And I didn't think that I was going to be able to go on the trip. I was like, oh, this is an impossibility. This is just a dream that can't really happen. But it did. And I made so many connections. I spent an hour and a half talking with Kyle about my book, just going through things, ways to improve it, and like other directions to take, and just to focus and refine it more. And then I also spoke to Johnnie for another hour the day after, just going over what he said and figuring out the new starting points and then the things to take out. So that was extremely helpful, especially as someone with no training and no real mentors within the publishing world. So yeah, that was for me one of the best parts, was just connecting with y'all and hearing everyone's stories, getting to know everyone, hearing their experiences within their writing careers. Obviously, I like Toni saying that it should be called Italy, because we did not stop eating, and I have come home and it is not the same, and I need more food. It's so, I'm like, this isn't enough. Where's the 3 courses? Or I'm having all these snacks again. I'm like, oh boy. And I worked out. I walked, because then I stayed an extra week, and I ended up doing a whole Letters to Juliet tour for my favorite film, going to all the places, which is my writing inspiration. I have already on my blog, Inspire Truth, Adventures in Israel, because living here, there's a lot of humor to be found living here in the things that you experience. But I'm expanding it to adventures around the world, and I'm going to include adventures in Italy, talking about the retreat and what we did, and then highlighting the Letters to Juliet portion of it and where I went and how silly I fangirled over everything. I went to the hotel where they did a lot of the filming, and it's like I was going to a celebrity's house or just meeting them in person, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is where this happened. I can see the scene playing out, and I had a guide at this hotel because it was like this posh hotel. I felt so silly, but then I was like, I don't care. This is my once in a lifetime opportunity to do this, and I'm gonna take it. And I ended up walking 140 kilometers in the 2 weeks, but mostly in that second week because there's not a lot of transportation options, especially within the cities in Italy. It's just like you just have to walk, which helped with the food, but I did put on like 2 pounds.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, there's some weight.
Yes, all the pasta and pizza and everything. Yeah, but there's so much to glean. I recorded everything, all the sessions, so I am going to start slowly going through each session and what we learned from it and the things that I'd written down, so that way I can start implementing it.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. And you got to do something really fun too, which you didn't talk about, was writing letters. So can you just talk about that?
Yes. So if anyone's seen Letters to Juliet, you go to, well, in the movie, Sophie goes to Juliet's house and there's this wall where everyone writes letters to Juliet. You're heartbroken, you're writing to her asking for advice. And then she finds this old letter and replies, and that's how the movie starts. Well, I found out because of the movie on Netflix, Love in the Villa, that there is an actual club that replies to the letters. There is no wall that you put the letters on. There is a post box, but they're also sent from all over the world. So you don't have to go to Italy to send a letter. And it's called Club de Juliet. And it's a volunteer basis. So you just have to write to them before you go, tell them a little bit about yourself, your your background and things, and say the dates that you're going to be there. If there's an opening, they rely on volunteers to reply to these letters, and there's letters in all languages. And so I went in Verona and spent about 2 hours replying to people's letters, and I sat there because there was already a few people there, but I was like, I don't just want to pick up any letter. Lord, let me pick up letters that I can actually help, give me the words for them. And I ended up choosing some really great ones. The last one I had actually had tear stains on it. And it was this girl just kind of crying out saying, am I ever going to find love again after this one? Do I hold on and just wait, or is it okay to move on and things? And so, yeah, there were some beautiful things that they wrote. One girl was like totally me saying, am I okay that I am okay about being single where everyone's getting married around me and I'm not? And she's like, am I crazy? Because people are saying I'm crazy now, so I need your advice. And I'm like, I've got you. So yeah, that was amazing. I'm the typical writer because I want it to be perfect. So there was a girl from London, or England, she's not from London, across from me. And she would just find a letter, read it, and just immediately start writing on the stationery. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, I gotta go through step by step. So I'm like reading it, going through it, going on my phone, writing the whole letter I want to say on my phone, doing Grammarly, reading through it again, and then writing it. Somehow I did 5 letters. I don't know how, but I was pretty proud of that. And I hope to go back one day and do more because there's a lot of letters. And these were all from last year. So it takes time, but it's an amazing experience.
That's amazing. And see, there's so much there for, like my little mind is going as far as fictional stories that that could come from that, in articles too, I would imagine, as you're, reading through the letters and seeing what people's needs are. And then, you could write articles to address those needs too. So yeah, that's fantastic. So Hannah Rose got to do all of that. And then I do want to say real quick that one of the places we went to, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, someone help me out here. Montepulciano. Thank you. So we went there, and that is the square. We saw the square, and I'm not a Twilight fan, but we saw the square where part of one of those movies was filmed. So that was, interesting. And that's actually, then we walked down this very narrow, steep alleyway and went into that old vineyards, or not, I keep saying vineyard, the winery. And I talked a little bit about that before. And some of the people, we were in 2 different vehicles and we were leaving, I believe, I forget where we were leaving from, but some of the people wanted to go buy the house where under the Tuscan sky, that house. So those people all got in one vehicle, and the ones who weren't such fans stayed in a different vehicle. And so there were people that got to actually stop at that house too and take photos and things. So that we had those kinds of connections, which is really cool as well. All right. Well, I was kind of postponing Hebe because I was hoping Bethany was going to get on here because their story's kind of connected, but she's not here yet. Sally.
Yeah, I was going to add that in London, I took a train with my sister to Bath and was able to go to the Jane Austen Center there in Bath and write a letter to Jane Austen.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I wrote a letter and penned it from me and Chicken Purse. And
is your chicken purse handy?
it's very handy to substitute.
No, I mean, you have it to show us. Do you have it like right there?
The person's recouping on the top shelf again.
Okay. It's shaped like a chicken. So yeah, that was really fun. I just got a text from Bethany saying she didn't know whether she should come on. I said, get on here right this minute.
Yeah. That was also one of my ideas that they kept telling me I should be doing, is a kid's book with Chicken Purse.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So while I'm hoping that she is going to come on so that Hebe and Bethany can kind of tell their story together. Julie had these two little, a gingerbread gal and guy, I guess. And so she was taking pictures all over the place and posing them, which was really fun. And then Sharon Cosby, who some of you may know, she goes to the Florida Christian Writers Conference almost every year, I believe. And that's where I met her several years ago. She is writing a novel about the donut girls and women in World War I. And so she had this donut that she was taking pictures of to use for marketing. So, I mean, these were really cool things that some of us were doing, thinking ahead about platform and how then you can market your book. Sharon and her husband may have been the oldest people on our tour, but I will tell you, I'm not even sure they're back home yet. Because they were going all over the place,
I think they were heading home today. They have just finished there. Yeah. Because she Facebook friended me and they are just finishing. Yeah. And headed home. Hannah says last night.
So there you go. So yeah, that they were having a great time. They were going all over the place. I think a lot of us tried to stay a little bit late. Hebe and I stayed another week up near Lake Como. And all right, well, I don't know where your niece is, but it's your turn.
No, she's there, but let me start with saying I wanted to echo a little bit of what Johnnie said about connections. So weirdly, Toni and I lived and worked within 40 miles of one another for several years and never met until we were in Italy. And I'm not going to put words in Toni's mouth, but for me, it was an instant connection. And I really got a lot from the time that I spent with Toni and hope that we continue to stay in touch. And I also wanted to talk about story ideas. So I kind of went on, and this is Bethany. I see you, not your physical self, but you and Sadie. So I kind of went in, and I was sort of in a weird position of Bethany is my agent, and I am working on a first nonfiction book, but also Johnnie is my sister. So while I was there for the conference, I was also in that family and friends sort of bonus space. So I was kind of being flexible about what I was doing. Hannah, I'm going to tell you that you can comfort yourself that the pounds that you gained were muscle pounds because of all of the walking and not necessarily from the pasta and the bread. And so that's the direction that I think you should go with that. But Bethany, are you there? Because I want to talk about Get Toasted. Well, so we'll give her just another minute, but
There she is.
let's talk about this. So we were sitting in one of the courses, I think about, I'm not even sure it was one of the classes. We were just kind of talking about marketing and the way agents get proposals. And Kyle was reading tweets. And Bethany, do you remember the tweet that he put out there?
Yeah, I don't know if yeah. So we saw a tweet hinting at a project someone was looking for. We're like, oh, we could do that.
We can do this. So it was someone calling for a book about toast. And Bethany and I were sitting across the table from one another and locked eyes. And I said, I can write that in 30 days. And she's like, can you? I was like, yeah, I can absolutely do that. Well, I was maybe a little bit ambitious, but I will say that one of the things that happened during the entire week of the conference was we talked about the ideas for the book, and different people would chime in with, "Hey, you could do this," and "What if you did a section that does this?" And even including, like, Liz and I talked about Peruvian food and wine pairings with that. My daughter is in the food and beverage space, and Bethany is also working with her on a book idea. And so we decided that what we would do is get together and do recipes related to toast and pair adult beverages with those. So that is the direction that the book is taking. Bethany doesn't know this, but we have 65 pages of the book written and are looking now for recipe testers. We are at the stage where we are bringing in recipe testers to test some of the recipes that are in the book. And I yesterday and the day before, spent 2 days making homemade ketchup for a Korean sandwich recipe. That ketchup is amazing. I was like, I wish I could send some to all of you because it's just absolutely delicious. But I think that for me, that was one of the benefits of the entire conference is that spark of an idea and coming in and really having other writers who understand the challenges of trying to get an idea off the ground and give it some shape and some form so that it can become a living thing in the world. And I think, and not to use overly flowery language, but I came home so enthused, actually started writing recipes and outlining on the trip. And Johnny will tell you, we went up to Lake Como and I spent time every day researching and pulling things together. So from my perspective, the food was fabulous, the sights were fabulous, but the camaraderie and the energy that was generated by the group of people that were there together, for me, that was the most valuable piece.
Yes, that's great. And she was like, I had a deadline, but I didn't, like Toni, I left my laptop at home. I didn't want to carry it around. And so Hebe was much more involved in writing than I was during our downtimes. I'm not sure what I was doing. I mean, I had a chapter summary I had to work on. So I was bouncing ideas off of her with that, but she was in it, and telling me different things she was learning as she was doing research. Because you know what? It sounds kind of odd, but there's a lot to say about toast.
Strangely, there is. It is really insane how much there is to learn about toast and how it's used in different cultures in the world.
Well, the fascinating thing about that was when during that early brainstorm, Hebe was like, we think of toast as like, okay, put it in the toaster. But if you think about toasted bread, it can be so much. And there's so many different kinds of it. And it's like the categories. I mean, I cannot wait to shop this book.
Well, and that was kind of, it really appealed to my process brain because it's like, I can do this. And then it was like, well, but wait a minute, what is toast? And then you kind of fall into, well, then what is bread? Because as Bethany said, it's the different ways that you heat bread to make it into toast. But then what is bread? And then you have to kind of go into what is flour, and not to get overly nerdy about it. But those are the things that really speak to me, is that research piece, because the research is the best part. And typing it all into the computer that's just work that has to be done. But the research is the exciting piece.
And that is why you are a nonfiction author like me.
That's right.
Really great. It's really great. Well, Beth, since you're on here, anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know what was said, but
well, everyone's just been kind of talking about their own personal experiences. So, you can share your experiences.
it was incredible, I think, to see how much of, and so to piggyback off of what Hebe was saying, to see the networking that was happening and the business part of this with the writers and who had connections, who was going to work together, who was going to stay in touch. Like that was, I think, the more surprising aspect of this for me. And I think the brilliance of having a smaller event, being away really from everything, because we've gone to another country, you kind of feel like you're really shut off from everyday life. And there was so much value that happened in the conversations at night, at meals. The meals were so long. We didn't know lunch would be an hour ordeal, and how much time there would be between the courses. I think that was surprising to both Kyle and I, but he's already talked to them. We've got tentative dates for 24 and 25, and we'll start promoting once you can't buy plane tickets yet. And that's pretty much the most expensive part of the trip. So when we're 10 months out, you'll start seeing Italy signups. But we're going back because I think that was the most valuable piece of it. And it's something we've always said in writers chat here and at conferences, is that it's not the instructors, it's the people sitting next to you at the events, the people you grow up with in the industry. You just don't know who you're going to become, and you don't know who someone else is going to become. And so to be able to have that time with everyone and the learning, because there was some great, I sat in on Mom's your thing. I got to hear Kyle, and it was such good information. I was taking away things as well. So you have the training aspect, but having that time, you don't see that a lot at the other conferences because you're just go, go, go. And this one felt slowed down, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, the meal times were great, and they were long, and like we didn't even start dinner till like 7:30. Nice, so it might be 9:30 before it was over. And these light meals, Kyle didn't tell us this till like towards the end, and he said, and we went with the light option, and we're thinking, then what would the heavy option or the not light option have even been? I mean, it's just crazy.
They started lightening it up, if you notice.
Because we were not eating everything. So it was wonderful. But the fun thing too was that the pasta wasn't heavy. It's like, I'm not a really big pasta eater, but I think I loved almost every pasta dish that was given to me, and would pretty much eat it. But you think of it being so heavy, and it's not. The lasagna was made with the bechamel sauce, am I right? Instead of layers of ricotta or, cottage cheese or whatever you put in it. And it too was even just light. And Rose says she was mad when they downsized courses. there was and the breakfasts were good too. Those were more like, serve yourself kind of thing. But yeah. Anybody else want we've got about 15 minutes. Anything else you want to just add or say?
Well, I'll say this, a couple of things that we've adopted as a family, because my kids were out there, Justin had them, and Kyle's family were off-site. So they were kind of doing their own excursions and things during the conference days. But I liked the 7:00 dinner and the time. And so we've actually implemented that since being back. So it's really worked out, because my kids go to school and Justin works far away. So 7:00 is dinner time. And that has spread out that I always called it the witching hour when my kids were little, like when they go crazy because they're hungry, but it's not dinner time yet. And it's chaos, like from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. It's really helped us space that out. And we're eating as a family now again, which we did sometimes it's a show, whatever. But so we've put more emphasis on that meal coming back from Italy. And I think that's not so much Justin and the boys' experience, but it was me at the conference, just loving that. And it gives more time to cook. And I've been cooking more. I came back with a much better appreciation of what food actually is and what it's supposed to be, versus my word that week was caricature. Like American Italian is a caricature of what Italian food really is. And so we've been doing recipes and cooking more from scratch now too. So there were so many personal things that I brought back, not necessarily on the writing side, but it was such an experience. I mean, I'm so excited to go back, and I hope that it's something that people will be able to go to. I think you get the business, but then I brought back so much personal things about how I wanted to live my life after being out there.
I do go ahead.
I
wanted to chime in on what Bethany said about reconnecting with what food is and what it's for. And I am a cook. I am a hobbyist cook, but really had fallen into the trap of eating a lot of processed foods. And because they're quick and I'm cooking for one person, and you don't feel like you need to get every dish out and make things. So, but since I've gotten home, I had a couple processed meals and was immediately sick. And I then went back to, okay, no, I'm going to commit to using the whole ingredients. And Bethany, on my cutting board right now, I have 2 heirloom tomatoes, a clove of garlic, some pasta from the one winery we were at, and that's dinner tonight, right? So I am making pasta. So I think that was another one of the really personal things I brought back is recommitting to, I'm never going to be a super healthy eater because I like things that are not good for me, but at least I'm going to try to stick with as nature intended it instead of as Nabisco intended it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Someone said, like, we were so isolated from things in a way, because, you've left so many things behind. And for me, it was like coming home, being a little bit careful about what things I'm letting back in, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. It just was I've called it a reset, and that's been true physically, emotionally, I think, and just spiritually, of course, but also there's just this awakening, and I sort of felt it as I was getting ready to go to Italy, where I just wanted to start. I wore the same jewelry all the time. Earrings my sister gave me, and this one necklace Nate gave me for Christmas a few years ago. But now it's like, oh, I'm going to Italy, I want to wear different jewelry. So, I took some other little pieces with me. So there was a little bit of that then, but then coming back home, it's like, I don't want to be behind my desk all the time. I've had all these deadlines for a couple of years now. They've just been one on top of the other. That ends at the end of this month. Fortunately, I have more books to write, but they're spread out. But it's like, I'm ready to do other things and to just be out, be out. So it just, it really was just wonderful for that way too. And Melissa says, okay, confession, I just went and made myself toast. I couldn't resist. I love that. I've not seen a lot of the things in the chat because I've been focused on this. So I've missed a lot of things, but that's funny. But yeah, the reset's the only word I really know how to use. And I just hope it sticks. I mean, that sense of doing things. Sally.
I feel like I had a completely opposite experience.
Oh, no.
Because it was so hard getting there.
Yeah.
And I was right before, the month before, I had like a head cold and was trying to get over that. And so, and I was so stressed about traveling alone. I was trying to get my husband to go with me, but he's got flight anxiety, not of the crash and burn and die type, because he's like, who cares? Go home, be with Jesus. But it's exactly the reason, because of what happened to me, all the stuff you can't control, that it takes an extra day to get there, that all the extra cost, everything like that. So I ended up coming home from that trip, mid-flight, my head clogged up. I had another head cold. So I am still trying to get over it. I'm still trying to get my feet, underneath. And of course, I took 2 weeks off from work. So I took an extra day off because I was sick. I was supposed to come home and go to work the next day, but I took it off. And but I've been working since then. And so that's sort of slowed my healing process too, I think. But I just sat there and thought, I don't know that I'll ever go anywhere ever again.
No, don't do that.
I just went to Las Vegas over Labor Day for my niece's wedding, who came in. Most of them were from London. And it took me 2 days to get home from there too, because the flight was delayed and then we missed our connection. And at least it was the same airline there and they paid for everything, but put up in a not so good hotel, nothing I would pick, eating a mac and cheese from the frozen department of the 7-Eleven because they've already put away their hot dogs and whatever while I'm trying to avoid the, I don't know if they're gangbangers or whatever, taking their midnight break. I don't know, but it was a little sketchy. And I thought, here we go again. But there's that cough again.
Yeah.
So I feel like I still need to rest from all the excitement. And I'm so glad I did it. I was so glad I did it. And there are so many lessons that I'd learned, not to go, do a direct flight,
Right.
connection, do a direct flight wherever you can. Leave 4 or 5 hours in between catching the next flight.
That's the one we learned.
Yeah. Have a Southside suitcase, because they are going to play rugby with your suitcase and break it. And just so many things, but just the whole experience. My husband encouraged me to do it. I didn't want to do it without him, but he just, almost foot out the door. Do it. No regrets.
Well,
And
we're
I
glad
did
you
not regret that I did it, even with all the extra experiences. But there were so many things that went wrong on my end that I just reeled. I felt like I never could catch up after, 45 minutes of sleep on my flight in, and then the whole next day in the air. I felt like I was running on fumes the whole time. But I feel like the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I kept migrating towards the same people. And even though I tried to mix it up, I'm like, oh, there's Nicole, there's Sharon, there's Hannah Rose, my roommate. Let me go sit with them.
Yeah.
And I left there feeling a bit of separation anxiety from Hannah and Nicole and Sharon, because, even in Florence, our last tour date where we all just sort of hopped the train and did whatever there, we ran around together mostly and just hung out. And I just hit Rumi, Hannah said in the comments. But yeah, I just, the experiences of meeting new people, and I do it at conference, but you don't have all that extra time that we had at this conference.
Exactly.
And even the tour stuff, you've got the bus time, and you've got the walking around time, and the cheese and meat platter time. But so much. And those meals were so good, not just tasting good, but yeah, like you guys said, just one long table sitting there and just trying to meet new people and listening to their experiences. And it was great.
Yeah, I think we were pretty good at that too. I mean, of course, Hebe and I often sat together too, but still you sat with different groups, and that was really nice to get to know different people. So, we've talked about, we went to these 2 different wineries. One was very modern, one was very used older methods. So it was really fun to see that contrast. We went to the Olive Mill, which was a small operation, but really, really fun. We also went to a sheep farm where they manufactured cheese. And that was also and of course, there again, we're eating cheese, like 8 different kinds of cheese. And so that was really a wonderful experience too. It just was, the sheep farm was great. And there were little puppies and cats and things. I know we need to wrap this up. We only have about 5 minutes left. So I don't know. I guess I'll just invite everybody to come back on, and if you have anything you want to ask, maybe we can answer questions really, really quick. Thank you for giving us this chance to talk about the Italy tour. Lessons learned. I mean, if you're going to travel like that, you need to be flexible. You need to be, just try to be aware of things, I guess, because I don't know. Oh my gosh.
I think this has been great. One of the threads I heard from several of the guests you invited on, Johnnie, was the importance of writing these things down, a travel log, a diary, a journal. I know that's something I always get, because it is so overwhelming. You hear so many different things, and to capture those, there'd be beautiful examples for speaking, or beautiful illustrations you could use in devotions, or maybe a storyline. You described the going down to the little winery, Johnnie. That's a scene in a book, and to capture that, to write that down, because there's no way you can, at least I can't remember it all, because it's just so overwhelming. And then the idea of getting that culture, we could do that locally even. they get the culture, the folklore, the stories, the history behind all these spots. We'll use those as writers. So I just think it's valuable. I learned the other day, just a few miles north of where I am in little northwest Ohio, that there's 3 Indian mounds, and I knew the mounds were up there, burial grounds, but I heard that there are times people up there say they can still hear the drums. Ooh, and that's cool. So I thought, I didn't know that about my little county. So there's stories all around us, and you guys have inspired me just to even look locally. But we're going to travel the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to get my journal out to take with me. On that, so that is true. It's weekly artist dates, Leslie said, to keep us inspired, and that's Julia Cameron, and exactly right. I think it's Gretchen Rubin that's going to the Met, the painting place, the gallery every day. She lives in New York. She walks down to the Met every day. And I thought, oh, well, I don't quite have that in my little town, but an artist date, weekly artist dates are so important. And that's what you guys inspired us. So Bethany, I don't know if Bethany's still here. You're going to have to keep us informed of these next trips.
Yes, we're going to go to, we're not doing like a serious writer event, but we are going to London, some of us, for the London Book Fair. So if anyone wants to go to England in April next year, we'll be out there. I know some agents who are out there, so I'm excited to see them. Maybe we'll do like a pop-up writing day or something out there. And then the Italy event is going to be right after that. So we're trying to make it so it's one international flight out and then have that. And then I think my mom and Hebe and I were talking about going back to, well, they're going back, I've never been, but doing a small intensive on Prince Edward Island and being able to go like all the Anne of Green Gables and see all those kinds of things for a few days. So it'd be not so much of a flight.
That is such a neat area. Just we
thought that would be fun to go somewhere where there's that literary connection. And I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't know whether that was still kind of like a hush hush because we haven't even really planned it yet kind of thing. But yeah, Hebe and I are talking about it with Bethany. We've been there once before, and it's kind of small, but they do have these cabins, and I did already kind of look it up to see what we could do. And so it would be a small thing as we keep it really small, but it could be really fun. So we might be doing that at the end of 2024. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll also be in the Michigan intensive is
coming up.
That registration's open now, and then we'll be in North Carolina in September. So for stateside, that's Michigan.
When's the Michigan? When's the date?
June 1st through 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming up real quick. I want to give a shout out to one other person who is not with us on Writers Chat and doesn't come in live. Heather Lamb. I met Heather in Italy. She was there with her husband. Heather teaches dance to little kids and is doing some things with dance as far as a book and children's book. I'm not sure what all she's doing, devotions maybe, but Heather watches our replay every Tuesday. So that was so cool. Again, had to go all the way to Italy to find this person, and just such a sweet, sweet couple. And we're so happy to get to know Heather and Kurt. And she told me, she says, this summer she might be able to, but she says, I can never be there when you guys are actually doing it, but I watch it every Tuesday afternoon. I go home and watch the replay. So hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather. So good.
Heather.
Johnny, while the recording's still going, I think you're helping to lead next week's topic, which is the publishing side of the desk.
Me? Oh,
I think it had you down. Lisa and Melissa, help save us if we're wrong on this.
Michelle. Is Michelle next week? Michelle Medlock Adams will be with us next week, who now is, I'm sorry, you just really threw me for a loop there because
I'm sorry.
I
just saw your name there. And
no, I think you're right. Well, yeah, there's a story behind that too. Melissa really helped me out. But anyway, we did get Michelle scheduled for next week. She is now a publisher with one of In-Game Press's imprints called Wren and Bear. So it's the children's imprint. And so, Michelle's a big best-selling children's author, very well known. And now she's taken this step to the other side of the desk. So we thought we would get some insight from her on what she sees. So it'll be focused on children's literature next week and Michelle's experience. But you know her, Michelle, she's just such a dynamo. So it'll be a lot of fun.
It's always exciting when both Bethany or Michelle join us too and stuff. Nothing's wrong with anybody else, but it's just like there's an excitement. I always go away learning something. So thank you.
Bethany, did you want to mention the mood pitch while we're on recording or really quick?
Yes. So Mood Pitch is happening April 6th. So that's Thursday. It's a big pitch event. It's for all genres. And so you've got agents and editors looking for all those things. So I'll put the link to the Mood Pitch Twitter profile there because all the details are there. But they've been doing a lot of things over the last couple of weeks. You'll see a lot of people offering to retweet for people, comment, boost. People are critiquing each other. So the writing community on Twitter is very, very strong. So Mood Pitch, if you've got a book project that you're working on, you just make some pictures in Canva. That's all you do. And you put them together and it goes along with your written pitch there. So it's a very fun event. So I'll go ahead and put that link to there. We don't host it. There's a whole group. So you can go check it out. But that's Thursday. So it's coming up.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Anything else, Johnny or Melissa or Brandy, to wrap up before we quit the recording?
No.
That's like this. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And for those of you that take the time to watch the replay, we just really, really appreciate this. Such a good community and a group, and you guys have inspired us and excited us today and made us all a little jealous on that. So we'll see you all next week on Writers Chat, and you're welcome to stay on for a little bit if you want to stay for our after party. Bye everybody.